I'm IM Turzo, an international master from Hungary. In this lecture, we will study the Pirc defense from black's perspective. We will look the variation, the classical system. The starting position appears after white starts with e2, e4, black plays d6, white plays d4, knight f6, knight c3, g6, and now white can choose to go to the classical variation with knight f3. Also he can go to the Austrian attack with f2, f4, or with some other lines with bishop e3, another attacking line, or also can play g3. The knight f3 is the absolute classical way to play, just getting control on the center with pawns and then develop the knights to support the pawns. After knight f3, black plays bishop g7, continuing the development on the king's side. And here white has three main possibilities. He can play h3 to prevent the bishop g4 pin or the knight g4 move. He can play bishop e3 with the idea to play queen d2 and then maybe later with bishop h6 to exchange the bishops. This line can go to the h3 line many times if in the next move white plays h3 to prevent knight g4. And the third possible move is bishop e2. I think this is the absolute classical way to play, and this will be the theme of this lecture, the bishop e2 variation of the classical system. White wants to castle as soon as possible, and then he chooses what to do. He can try to win space on the queen side with a4 and then maybe a5. Also he can try to attack in the center with e4, e5, or sometimes can attack on the king side also if the knight goes back to f3 knight and then later play f2, f4. After bishop e2, black castles, and by this he completed the development of the king side. His king has safe position. White castles. And in this position, I would suggest you to play bishop g4. Especially because white did not prevent it with h3 move. And I think this is a good move because other ways black has limited space, and the exchange of the pieces most of the time preferable for the player who has limited space, because with less number of pieces easier to maneuver on the less space. And many times this bishop could have problems to develop in other variations. Black is ready to give up the pair of bishops if white plays h3, because after bishop takes f3, and white captures also with the bishop back, black would like to play for e7, e5 to counterattack in the center and try to attack the d4 square later also with knight c6, because by exchanging the f3 knight, the d4 square became a little bit weak, at least weaker than before. So in this position, I would suggest you to play knight c6, attacking the d4 pawn. And here white can choose on different moves. You can first look if he develops the bishop to g5, very aggressive way. Then we can play h6 most of the time in this position also to force white to choose to give up one of the diagonal. If he plays bishop h4, then he gives up the c1, h6 diagonal, the control on that diagonal. If he goes to the other diagonal, then there will be no more pressure on f6. White goes back to e3. With the idea, he provocated h6 move, and then in the next move, when he will develop the queen, he can win a tempo by attacking the h6 pawn. After bishop e3, black can continue the original plan to play e7, e5, attacking the e5, with the e5 on the d4 pawn, and getting more space. In the Pirc defense, our basic idea is to develop the pieces as soon as possible and then try to attack the white center when we had the pieces developed. And then if we will have different pawn formation in the center, then we will choose how to continue. Example, if white decide to close the center, then most of the time black will choose to go back with the knight to e7, and then after knight d7 start an attack on the queen, on the king side, the pawn storm. f5 he can attack the center, or can choose to attack the center one more time with c7, c6. If white's capture on e5, then black can capture back with the pawn to continue to controlling the d4 square. And in this position, white may try to control the d4 square with the knight from e2, and also be ready to play c2, c3 if the black knight would like to come into d4. So white is ready to meet the knight with c2, c3. If this happens, then the black queen can develop on e7, and in this position the white's pair of bishop is not enough to gain an advantage, because especially the light square bishop is very bad because it's blocked by the e4 pawn, and it has not so nice future. It can go to g4, it maybe go sometimes later to e2 and then to c4, then it would have a nice position, but till that black has plenty of time to create counterplay. And he can try to get counterplay on the queen side by a6, b5. Also he can transfer the f6 knight to d6, and then to attack e4, and then the c4 square to support the attack, and sometimes even may have the idea to attack the center with f7, f5. So the idea of c2, c3 can be looked also in another move order, in another position. If white immediately play here knight e2, with the idea when black plays e7, e5, he is ready to defend the d4 pawn with c2, c3. And sometimes white may plan to play d5 and then c4 and knight c3 to create an attack on the queen side. For black, then in that kind of position, the counterplay is obvious. He should attack on the king side by f7, f5, and then try to push the pawns with f4, g5, even h5, g4 to get a counterplay against the king. Example, black can here waiting what to do, and if he plays example rook e8, because other way then it's threatening to capture on d4, and then the e4 pawn would be hanging, and now white may choose to play d5 to close the center. It has the advantage of winning space, but also the closed center is disadvantageous for the pair of bishops, because we know in closed position the knights are better than the bishops, because they can jump around the pawns, but the bishops are blocked by the pawns because they go on diagonals. So if white wants to use the bishops, it would be maybe better try to keep open the position, but it's not easy to manage this, because otherwise the e4 pawn will be under pressure. But here he can choose to continue the attack with c3, c4, and later black should return the bishop to f8 to support the f7, f5 attack. He can start with knight d7. He's controlling c5 square, and also now the f pawn is ready to move. And we know if white plays, example, knight c3, then the black rook can go back to f8 and then continue the attack with f7, f5. I think this gives more than enough counterfeit for black. But if you look in this variation, black lost 2 tempos because he played rook e8 and rook f8, and black can play better if he knows already this idea. And he can choose to play here king h8. This is also a waiting move, and now it would be good for black if white plays d5, because then the rook would not lose moves, and also maybe the king on h8 is better than on g8. If all the pawns move forward, then it has more safe position. In this position, I think white should play b2, b4, with the idea to attack as soon as possible on the queen side, and always have the possibility to open the center. So in close center, black would be fine, but so white can try to stay open in the center. After this move, black can just wait and be ready what will happen. Or also he can play just waiting moves with the queen. Sometimes queen e8 is also a helpful move, because later when the f5 move happens, then g5, then the queen can come on g6 to help. And here, example, if whites continue to play in the center with d5, then knight e7, and when white plays c4, then black has an important move to do, is a7, e5, to try to destroy the pawn structure, because a3 is not possible when the a1 rook is not defended. And after, if white captures, then the rook captures back. And later, black may block the queen side attack by rook d7, knight d7, and then b7, b6, and continue the plans to attack with f7, f5 on the king side. If you go back a little bit, and we can look one another plan for white, maybe a little bit more active, to play here knight b5, with the idea of giving up the possibility to play c2, c3, and if black plays a6, then the knight simply goes back to e3, and then after c3 may go to c2 and e3. But black would not play a6, because that would simply have the white plans, but we would play e5 like in the another variation. And if white plays c3, then black can develop with queen d7, because after queen d7 the b5 knight can have some problems sometimes. If d5 happens, then again we can do the similar strategy. We can play knight e7, and this knight cannot go now to d7, but can go to e8, and then with f7, f5. If rook e1, the developing move, then black can play rook a d8. And we are ready for the fight in the center, and you can play d6, d5, and then it would be good now for black, because black has the development advantage. Possible white should close the center with d5, and then black knight goes back to e7, and after c4 can play a6, knight c3, and then black may play c6 to attack the center, or can choose to go back with the knight to e8 and then to play f7, f5. So we made some brief analysis on the line h3. So white immediately forced black to give up the bishop. The other line which I would like to show you is to play bishop e3. It's, I think, maybe a more logical line, because after bishop e3, knight g4 is not possible anymore, because the black bishop is there, and if black captures on f3, then white won the tempo of, instead of the h3 move, he already developed the bishop. Here black should continue with knight c6, follow the idea of controlling and attacking d4 square and supporting the e7, e5 advance. If white develops the queen, so completed the development of the pieces, only the rook needs to be developed to e1 or d1. Black would play e5. And now white can choose to move the pawn to d5 and be ready for attack on the queen side, and black would attack on the king side, or white can choose also to try to open the position for the bishops and capturing on e5, then black capture back with the pawn, rook 8 d1, and now an important move, queen c8, because if queen e7, then white would play maybe knight d5 with the tempo move, and if black captures, then he captures back with the pawn attacking the knight. So black chooses to develop the queen on c8, and then want to play rook d8 to exchange at least one of the rooks, and then later may develop the queen to another diagonal to e6, or sometimes the knight can come capture back on d8 and the knight goes to e6, and then later maybe on f4 or d4 controlling, and the c7 pawn can go to c6 to controlling the d5 square, which is the d4 and d5 square are critical for both players. Many times they try to control that by moving the knight away and then controlling by the pawn. So like here, white can play also queen c1 after rook d8. White captures on the rook takes d8, knight takes d8. Yes, and then rook d1. So white get the control on the open file, but I think it gives not much for him, because he cannot come in because we control very well the squares, the breaking squares. And after that, black can play knight e6, controlling d4 and f4, and if h3, then bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3, and c6, how we said, controlling d5, and now black plans to play queen c7 and rook d8 to get the open file. After c6, knight e2, controlling f4 and d4, queen c7, c3, controlling d4, a5, it's preventing the b2, b4 move, and sometimes even black may plan to advance the b pawn to have some attack on the queen side with b5, b4. a5, king c2, and here comes the last move in our analysis of this line, and very important move with the bishop, because after the pawns are exchanged on e5, that bishop is dead. Most of the time it's dead, because the e5 pawn closed the diagonal, and it can be activated on two ways. If sometimes black knight moves on f4, and there will be exchange, and then the e pawn capture on e4, f4, and then the diagonal for the g7 bishop would be opened. That's one way. Or the knight goes somehow to d4 and then captured, and then the e pawn captures back. This may happen, but we look in this position, it's not easy to to make it. And the other way is to play bishop f8, which happened in this game also, to transfer the bishop to another diagonal. And this is a very nice diagonal for the bishop, especially in the next move will be bishop c5 would be very good, because can exchange the bishops, and then white would have the problem with the f3 bishop, because that's similar like the g7 bishop was blocked by the e4 pawn, and in endgames it would be bad, especially against the knight, because that bishop cannot attack the e5 pawn, but the knight can attack the e4 pawn. So an endgame, the knight versus the bishop, it would be preferable for black if the dark side bishops exchanged. So this happened if white decided to capture on e5. After e7, e5, what else he can do? He can play d4, d5, deciding to winning space. Then black plays knight to e7, rook a d1. By this move, white is ready to, if black may play c7, c6 to attack the center, white is ready to capture c6 and then d6 is hanging. This is the idea to white prevents the c7, c6 move. And now may come a little strange move, bishop d7. So in this position, black decides to go back with the bishop because the structure changed. Black played bishop g4 in the beginning when the pawns was in different format, and now black decides to come back because the center already closed. And that bishop can be very helpful later in the attack, both by f7, f5, or also black may try to attack on the queen side with b7, b5. Especially because compared like to the king's Indian, when the pawn on c4 already, then black has no real attack on the queen side, no real chances, but when the knight is on c3, then black may try b5, a5 ideas to get counterattack also on the queen side. Also now knight g5, knight g4 threatening to attack the bishop. White may play rook knight e1 with the idea to transfer to knight to d3. Later support may be c4 pawn march to c5 or f4, f5, f4, maybe f5. And now it's very good move comes b7, b5. With the idea now it's threatening b5, b4, and the e4 pawn is hanging. And here white can prevent that with a3 move, or try to prevent at least. Then we would continue with e7, e5 to renew the threat of b5, b4 move. And in this position, I think the knight can be transferred to d3, again to preventing the b5, b4 move. And also, white may have sometimes the strategy to play himself b4, b2, b4, and later maybe try to attack the b5 pawn in an endgame. But I think black has very nice counterplay here, starting with an interesting move, queen b8. Interesting but very logical, I think. It's renewed the strat again with b4 strat, and also give space for the rook. But sometimes it can be used for undermine the center by c7, c6, or from c8 it can help, or from d8. In this position, most of the time white decides to allow black to play b5, b4 and defend the e4 pawn by f3 move. If f3 happens, then now black can play c6 also to undermine the center, because the knight on d3 now it's blocking the d2 queen and d1 rook, so white cannot win on the pawn on d6. After c6, the d5 pawn also hanging, so white should capture on c6. D takes c6, bishop takes c6. And now the only and the good active choice for white is to play b4 move, to blocking the b5 pawn, and also trying to attack later the backward d6 pawn. To prevent that, it's time for black to play the freeing move, the liberating move, d6, d5. But you need to be careful and need to calculate very well, because after this it looks a very strong move, and it's really a good move, but white has some active play here, bishop c5, because the c5 square is no more controlled by the d pawn. By this move, white prevented the d5, d4 fork, and also attacking the e7 knight, and may attack the f8 rook. Here black should play rook e8, defending the knight. Then white now should play very sharp, because if you don't play sharp, then black will play simply d5, d4, winning more space and a great position. Later maybe even attack the center with f7, 5. So white should try to open the position and play actively. So maybe capture the a pawn. And this gives a very complicated position. If white, after white's move, black can capture e4. Then knight goes to b4 to attack the bishop. And black can capture on f3 to attack the e2 bishop. So white has no time to capture on, or not so good to capture on c6, because the black knight can capture back. So white should capture back on f3 with the pawn, and then black has time to go back to d7 with the bishop. And then if white has the pawn on the a5 square, he can push it to e6, and now let's count how much pawns. 5 pawns against 5 pawns, but the white pawns are all isolated, so that's not so good sign for white, good sign for black. Okay, white has also some well-placed pieces, active pieces, and has maybe a dangerous pass pawn, a pawn. But I think this would be also good for black after knight f5, and may sometimes even sacrifice a pawn by playing knight d4, that exchange the bishop, which may support the a pawn, and also then gives the possibility for a nice play for the g7 bishop, and also for the e8 rook. I think this gives at least equal game for black. So let us go back a little bit to the beginning, and I would like to show you one more way for white to play in this position. White can choose to play here also a4, with the idea to winning space there, and also